Our 7 tradition states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supported, declining outside contributions. We will now pass the basket. This is a weekly STEP meeting. Our format is as follows. A speaker is asked to talk for 25 to 30 minutes on the STEP of that week, followed by discussion or questions until 7 p.m. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. Now this brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting. On May 5th, what is today? The 13th of 2024 in Doylestown, Pennsylvania on Monday night, 6 p.m. Stay Alive. Literature and Step Group of the St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Trish. She will be sharing her experience on Step 4. Let's all give her a warm welcome.
Hi everybody, my name's Trish. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey Trish.
I drank essentially because I liked the effect produced by alcohol. The sensation was so elusive that while I admitted it was injurious, I could not, after a time, differentiate the true from the false. To me, my alcoholic life seemed the only normal one. I was restless, irritable, and discontented until I could once again experience a sense of ease and comfort, which came at once by taking a few drinks which I saw others taking with impunity. After I succumbed to the desire again, which I did so many times, the phenomenon of a craving developed, and I passed through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful, with a firm resolution not to drink again. I repeated this over and over until I finally experienced an entire psychic change. So, that's my story. Really, essentially. My home group is the 715 Expect a Miracle in Lansdale. I do also frequent the 6 a.m. here, hence why I tried to go down that hallway. My sobriety date is January 4th, 2007. So I have a little over 17 years. Oh, well that broke.
No.
My kids were playing with it earlier. And I play with my jewelry when I get nervous. So now you know my secret. There we go. So I have a little over 17 years, and I got sober when I was 20. And now I see that as such a blessing. At the time, it sucked. And when people would say, wow, you're so lucky that you got this when you were young, I just wanted to throw something at them. Because having 6 months at 21 was atrocious. So what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, with reference to Step 4. So I am one of 6, Irish Catholic, lots of drinking. It's funny, we had my daughter's Holy Communion 2 weeks ago, and when I grew up, a Holy Communion, a baptism, a birthday party, graduation was a kegger. We did not serve alcohol. I live in a sober home. My husband, I met him at Expect a Miracle, so we're both sober. So we don't need it in the house. You know what I mean? It's just not something that I need around me. Because of that, a couple weeks ago, my daughters, they do cheer. And so they were asking, we're in the North Penn School District, so they're a part of the Squires. And there's this rival team that's a part of a tavern, the Cannoneers Tavern. And she was like, well, what's the difference? And I was like, oh, it's just a different league. So one day we were driving down Cannon in Lansdale, and I was like, oh, that's the Cannoneers Tavern. That's where they play out of. And she was like, oh, well, what is a tavern? I said, it's a bar. My 8-year-old was like, well, what's a bar? And I was like, oh, well, I mean, at 8, I knew what a bar was. And I was like, it's just a place that they serve alcohol. And she was like, oh, well, what's alcohol? And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I judge me or if I judge you, being 8 years old and not knowing what alcohol is. But that's just how different my life is. At 8 years old, I was playing bartender. My cousins and I, we would mix, Sprite and something else and put all the cherries and the limes in it and pretend to be drunk. Because in my life, being drunk looked fun, and that was it. So my first drink, I was 12 years old. I was down in Wildwood with my family, older cousins, older siblings, and they were drinking. I asked, they let me. It was warm MGD. I think it tasted gross, but they were drinking, so I drank. And I got this feeling that I liked. I got this buzz. And so at some point they put me to bed, and I just laid there wanting more. So I snuck out of bed, I went downstairs, I had some more, and I snuck back upstairs to not get in trouble. And again, I laid there, not wanting to go to sleep and just wanting more. So I went to sneak downstairs, I tripped, I fell into the hallway closet, I woke everybody up, and then I got in trouble. And that is my drinking story. Like, I drink, I can't stop, I get in trouble, and you take it away from me. And so, you know, when I was younger, it was just at family parties where I could get some. But by the time I was 15, I started dating somebody that was older, and he could buy me alcohol and he could buy me cigarettes, and so I was in love. And by the time I was 16, I was drinking daily. And by the time I was 17, every time I drank, I woke up in a pile of urine. And by 18, I was getting arrested, you know, every couple months. Every time I drank, I blacked out. So between like 16 and 20, it's like a strobe light. Like, that's what my memory is. So basically how it ended up was I got kicked out of college. My parents wouldn't let me live there anymore because I have younger siblings, and they couldn't trust me. Like, I think back to the things that I did, and I'm like, oh my God, I would never have let myself around, you know, younger siblings. Like, I was just very disrespectful, and I was very driven by the alcohol and outside substances. Like, that became my master. So I was underage, so like I always had to seek out, and you know, people that are willing to buy for younger females aren't always the best. So anywho, I lost my license for 5 years because of my DUIs. I was thousands of dollars in debt, and my mom told me that I was no longer allowed to be around with my siblings. So I was homeless. I was facing jail time. So I went to rehab. I didn't go to rehab because I wanted to get sober or anything like that. I really just went because I was trying to avoid jail. I didn't think I could handle the food in prison. So I went to Living Room, and really that was my plan. While I was there, I met a lot of people that had been to rehab like 10 times, and I was like, they know what they're talking about. So I did what they did. Now, I know that going to rehab several times probably isn't the best indicator of who to hang out with, but they were also like young and had some sort of like a fire behind them. So I took the suggestions that they had, and I ended up going to a recovery house in Lower Bucks. And a lot of them are still sober. Some of them aren't, and some of them are now dead. But I was surrounded by a lot of people in early recovery. They were younger. They were motivated for different reasons, but like the chaos around it. I was driven to the chaos, you know what I mean? And I just kind of followed them. The recovery house provided me with structure. I had to get a sponsor. I had to get a home group. I had to do the steps. And if I were at home, I wouldn't have. Like, I would have figured out a way to lie. I would have figured out a way to like cheat the system somehow. But at the recovery house, like, they knew when I was lying. You know what I mean? I could get over on my mom, but I guess with a whole bunch of other alcoholics, they just like, either they always thought I was lying or they just knew how to call me out. So I got a sponsor, and her name was Tracy Kukan. She's no longer with us, but you know, we started to go through the steps, and it was very like, okay, step 1, check, done it. Step 2, okay, check, did it. So I got to step 4, and you know, she had me write down things, wrote them down in a notebook. We got together at her church. We sat there. I read it off to her. Check 5, you know, step 5, check. And that's how it went. And then I was done the steps. So then I moved home, and then I isolated, and then I wanted to drink, and then I wanted to die. I didn't drink. You know, God did for me what I could not do for myself, and I had a bunch of girls from the recovery house like call me up, and they were like, you know, are you okay? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine. And again, they knew how to call me out. So I don't know, going from like a foundation where I was completely surrounded by recovery and then moving back home where I had to put the effort in, I just didn't want to do it. You know, I didn't think I needed it. Just not drinking was enough. Until it wasn't. And that's when I started to really go to more meetings. I was worried. It was like I had enough of a taste of AA to know that like I didn't really want to drink. But if I wasn't going to drink, the only solution was like killing myself. And that's a really awful place to be in. I hear people talk about dry drunks, you know, that like that was that was harder pain than like actually drinking, because at least when I was drinking, I was numb. So that's where I was living until I started going to meetings at the Expect a Miracle Clubhouse. And I just kind of like went to all the meetings there, and it's a clubhouse, so it's open all the time. So there's a 7:15, there's a 10, there's a noon, there's a 3, there's a 6, there's an 8, and I really just lived there, like outside of work. I was waitressing, and it was the guys at the 7:15. They started talking about Joe and Charlie tapes, and I was curious, so I bought some. And these old men on these tapes, like, just like grabbed me. You know what I mean? So I ended up getting a different sponsor, and anyway, turns out the steps are in here. The steps were not on the wall, as I had done. You know, and it was a very different experience. So ending on page 63, step 3, this was only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made an effect, sometimes a great one, was felt at once. Next, we launched on a course of vigorous action, the first step of which is a personal house cleaning, which many of us had never attempted. Though our decision was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Liquor was but a symptom. We had to get down to causes and conditions. Therefore, we started upon a personal inventory. This was step 4. So liquor was but a symptom. I found that out. And getting down to causes and conditions. For me, it was very important to have it on paper again, because to be honest, when I did my first like 4th step, like a pseudo 4th with my first sponsor, I left things off consciously because I was ashamed of sharing them out loud. So I just didn't, you know, and like I didn't really buy into the AA thing, so I didn't think it mattered. Anyway, it turns out it mattered. So when I put it all down on paper and I looked at it, and then I really had the courage to share it out loud, which I know is a different step, it was transformative. So I was told at one point in time at a meeting, like, oh, like a 4th step, that's something that you really do once. You do that once, and then you do like 6, 7, you know, whatever, like you do those on and on again. I have found that to be false. I have found that to be false because, for me anyway, for me, the point of this program is no longer to not drink. For me, the point of the program is spiritual growth. When I grow with God, I become a better person. I become a better mother, a better wife, a better friend, a better employee, a better AA member, a better neighbor, like a better all these things. And at once upon a time, those things didn't really matter. What mattered was me drinking and who could get it for me. And so because like for me, it's all about spiritual growth, I'm always getting better. So the things that at one time were acceptable at some point become unacceptable. Do you know what I mean? Like, for example, I used to steal money from people to get what I needed. And when I got sober and I started working this program, like, I knew that was not okay. So I had to stop doing it. And when I do it, I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach where I know that that was wrong. And if I continue to do it, or if I don't own up to it, then it will lead me back to a drink. So fast forward. So I'm like 5 years sober, and I went to a funeral, and the service or whatever was at a cheesecake factory. And I ordered tea, because I'm sober, and they brought it to me, and they had the cream in this little tiny milk dish that was so cute, and I wanted it, so I took it. And at the time, I was like, it's the Cheesecake Factory. They have all this money, like, whatever. So I had it in my purse. I get home, and I put it in my drawer, and I leave it in this drawer for like 3 days. And at some point, I'm like, I shouldn't have stolen this freaking milk dish. Like, I was eating me up. But that wouldn't have eaten me up at 10 days sober, at 90 days sober, at 1 year sober. Like, that would have been a drop in the bucket, you know? So anyway, I take it out, and I write a letter to the Cheesecake Factory in Cherry Hill, and I put it in this envelope, and I send it back, and I go to a meeting, and, like, I share about it. And I was telling my mom about it, like, later on that day, and she was like, wow, you are just so great now. And my dad looks at me, and he's like, why are you stealing? You know what I mean? but that's why I have to continue to do a fourth step, because, you know, the things that were okay when I did it the first time are not okay now. And that's how I can tell that, like, the program is doing what it's supposed to do, because I keep having things to add on. You know what I mean? So I don't, my sponsor, she does, I have a sponsor. She lives in Doylestown, actually. She's the one who told me about the 6 a.m. meeting. But she does it like every year, like around her anniversary. She'll do a new 4-step and kind of go through it. For me, I just kind of do it when I feel heavy. Like, when I start to feel heavy, it's telling me that there's something that's not right, and then I have to do an inventory. And I put it down in black and white, and who I share it with might be my sponsor. It might be somebody in my family. Like, it really kind of depends, you know what I mean? In the beginning, it had to be my sponsor because I didn't have any healthy relationships. Now, 17 years in, like, I have a lot of healthy relationships. I have a lot of people that I can trust, so that circle is just bigger, you know? I have a lot of women that I've been able to connect with in this program that I can rely on and trust upon, that I can share things and I won't have it go anyplace. So to sum up, I'm still sick, but I'm not drinking, but I'm trying to do better every day. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you. Please limit your sharing to 3 minutes. Please keep your shares related to this step. If you feel like drinking, or if you've had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We are in a church and on a spiritual journey. Now, I'd like to open up the meeting.